So take it away, Dave and Mackie.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mackie on WZCR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, where it's more than just radio. So jump to the chat room if you can. This is show number 454. Believe it or not, that number just keeps getting bigger. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you missed Solaris's show, you shouldn't have, but you can catch it in the archives. Her show was great tonight. She had a guest, Captain Henry Kroll, author of Cosmological Ice Ages, and they were covering so much ground with their discussions. It was pretty cool. I listened to almost all of the show, maybe about 15 minutes I missed. But, you know, I mentioned the archives, and it only cost about $5 on Patreon to be able to subscribe to the archives on freedomslips.com, and then you can get her shows, our shows, all the host shows, which is actually pretty cool. Now, Mackie and I, he's absent today. He's still driving back from the South Coast. He went to the coast on, and I'll get to it, a pretty extreme weather day. We broke some new heat records for November, which is... that would have to have been 46 degrees or higher. I think 45.6 or something like that was the last record in November. And I remember that. And yeah. Anyway, we did break another one overnight where we had the hottest minimum temperature. And I think that was 25 degrees. And I'll show that temperature a bit later on. That we, at 4 a.m., it was still 30 degrees. It's interesting. Anyway, the serious note here is we acknowledge, this is Mackie and I, the traditional custodians of the land, and we thank them for allowing our use. I know they didn't have much say in the beginning. Certainly there's no uprising, and I have to admit that they did a bang-up job of looking after the place before we got here, and we have a lot to learn, just letting you know. And where I live, it's the Darkinjung, and where Mackie lives, it's the Daruk people, and we pay our respects to those elders who lived before, now, and in the future. So, look, having said that, I wanted to... there is a YouTube channel, by the way, and I'm going to paste it into the chat room, and let's see. Thank you very much, Omega Logos. There's the chat link. I can't do everything at once, although I can, you know, walk and talk. I can talk. No, it's good. I've been Christopher Walken. So I've done all my admin now, so that's cool. I can get on to some news. And the first thing to mention here today, it was going to be simply the virus, the election, the Iran scientist, China tariffs, China's a mob boss mentality right now, and the French protest. But that's what it was going to be. And I built the news throughout the week, and it's not quite gone the way I thought it might. There's been certainly some change in where this is right now, yeah? The change is, well, I hit it before. We've reached some crazy temperatures, so I think the temperature we hit today in where I live anyway was about 106 Fahrenheit, which is it's not groundbreaking. It's only 41 degrees, maybe 41.2 Celsius. Not awful, not a terrible thing. One of the things we did hit though, like I remember, what time was it this morning? Yeah, here we go. So at 6:30 a.m. it was 30 degrees. At 4 a.m. it was 30 degrees. It only dipped down to, I was wrong, 29.9 or 29.8. In there, I can share the screen. So 4 a.m. it's 30 degrees. That's that's pretty hot. We had a blackout where I live, also in the Gosford area in New South Wales, for about maybe 3 or 4 hours last night, while... Ooh, I think I can hear some lightning. So last night, when was it? About 6:30. Yeah. So it had just come off 40 degrees temperature, and until about 9:30 or something, we had no aircon. So we had to live like the Dark Ages. Crazy to live in 40-degree temperatures when we're also used to it. We're also used to not doing that any longer. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit tough. There isn't much in the way of weather coming through. There's no respite. There's a cold front pushing through right now, which should lower the temperature from 39 down to about 20 something. So that's livable. But yeah, who knows? Anyway, so the last year at this time in the Sydney area, we call it the Sydney Basin, all the way up to the Hunter Valley where I live, the weather was so bad, the fires were so bad, it was so dry, it had been dry for years, and we had some of the worst fires. In fact, we had the worst fires in Australia's history at the beginning of the year, starting in September, a few months ago last year, all the way through to January. And we were in a perpetual state of evacuation. We didn't know whether we had to leave or not as the fire got closer and closer and closer. And 3 months of the fire burning in the largest fire burn in Australia's history, and it stopped about maybe about 10 kilometres from us, just short of that. And that was tough. I have to say it was tough. And I have a daughter who has PHT. Look it up, so I don't have to describe it. And it's awful when the air is so thick that it was millions of times greater than the warning levels, because there was debris falling, burnt leaves falling on the car, on the house. They were out, they weren't still burning, but they'd been baked in the heat rising from the flames would suck up everything and throw unburnt material in the air. Then it would slowly bake in the 1700 degree temperatures in the air column, and then come raining down, in advance of the fire. And you know that if it's raining debris where you are, the fire is coming towards you. That's just the way it plays. So, but anyway, today's record temperatures saw a couple of fires burning, and some homes and buildings lost. The emergency service were called to bushland next to Whitehaven Road at Northmead. That's near where I used to live, down in Sydney, where I grew up. And there isn't much more to the story. There's some property on fire about 2 hours ago. And look, the government promised that they'd be attending to purchasing full-time firefighting aerial appliances, and that just never happened. So now we're back into the fires again, and it's almost time. Every time something gets serious in this country, our Prime Minister goes to Hawaii for holidays. So, and just waiting for him to chuff off there to go and say, oh, it's tough. Well, what a stressful environment it is. Yeah, but what about the stress of the people who are, seeing the face of the fire, the coal face? And when he went, the terrible thing was that he went with a news crew to go and congratulate the people who were fighting the fires in a specific country town south of Sydney. And the firefighters refused to shake his hand because he's not their demographic to start with. He's like an extreme right, and he wasn't their cup of tea. Now, our right and left isn't the same as your right and left. Our right and left were typically just right big business, left more people-centric. Big business will operate anyway in either case, but if big business is only after maximizing profits and deteriorating the person's rights, and the left, this is the way it's always been played in Australia until recently, and the left was always about trying to, defend against the erosion of human rights, and especially with workplace agreements and things like, and wages. So that was the differentiator between the two. And now we've been witness to something extraordinary happening, where sports rorts, so money coming in for the government to be able to distribute to all of their, not provinces, but little voting areas, to a sporting field for those that were maybe just a little on the edge. And then they talked up all this money, and the government's given all these things to the people, got a gift, and the gift swayed their votes towards the government. That's natural, but it shouldn't have occurred. And then they shredded all of the documents that proved their choices, and it became, well, now we can see in hindsight what they'd done. And I think that's pretty bad. But when you think that's bad, and it isn't, it's bad that they didn't, because they shouldn't have done it, and it's against all their process to do that. But I have to say, it flies in the face of what's currently going on in the US, and that's a story that's coming up. So I want to crack on here and get onto the virus. So Meki always prefaces this with, look, we're not arguing the existence or non-existence of it. These are the official figures, and I'll always talk to the official figures of the virus, because I believe personally that the virus is a real thing. The severity, I'll talk about the severity. And I think at the moment, the case fatality rate globally is 3.53%. So don't let anyone tell you that, there's 300 million people, blah, blah, blah. No, you can't work out people who have not had it, because that's not what a case fatality rate is. An IFR is projected or guessed numbers on those who they suspect might have got it. I don't talk to those numbers. I talk to these numbers. These are the numbers that I'm referring to, and these are confirmed cases of SARS-CoV-2 virus, and I'm not talking about the disease, because very few people present with the disease. Like the AIDS virus, or HIV, because it's got V in it, that's the virus, and AIDS is the disease, right? So, like, not everyone presented with AIDS who had HIV, the same thing. You can have SARS-CoV-2 exposure and be asymptomatic, not presenting any of the COVID-19 symptoms, because that's the disease it's describing, and that's enough of that. So look, it's pretty crazy. We've gone up 750,000 or 670,000 per day now, and the number's getting bigger per day. So if I show, I've got some case graphs here. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're kind of missing out on the visuals, and I did post the link there. I'm Narara in the chat. So the USA is 200,000. I think they're kind of winning. The USA is winning. If that was a count, if this was like a medal tally, you're certainly ahead of the game. Everyone admits that, and your cases aren't coming down. We thought they might have been a little bit of a reprieve, like Monday, but they're not. They're still going up. So, and they're going up kind of straight up too, by the way. India, it's trickled off, and it's doing maybe 40,000 something or other. Brazil, just 45 maybe, or 48,000. France is toppled right off now. It's in like 16,000. Russia's, it's climbing up, and it's basically a copycat curve of the US at about maybe 27,000. However, you've got to think, US is at 200,000 and they're similar, but this is the US's third wave. This is only Russia's second. And you can see that evidence by the curves. So Spain is still on its second, United Kingdom, second, Italy, blah, blah, blah. Argentina is still on its first wave, but it's trickling off. And Colombia is coming back up again after quelling it somewhat. And Germany is I think they're having just as hard a time as is Russia in the kind of quantities they're seeing. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's important to note what it does mean. The vaccines that they're bandying about, one of them, that's the AstraZeneca vaccine, is developed and modified a monkey or chimpanzee virus, my mistake, virus, and that's what they give you as a modified chimpanzee virus, which enters the cell, then the nucleus, replaces the nucleus DNA copying process with its DNA, like it breaks in, it's a break-in editor, and then it starts producing the mRNA out of there that gets copied in the cytosol and then produces the antibodies and sends that to the messenger RNA, cells who look after your immune system. That's quite complicated. Now, they can only use the chimpanzee virus the one shot. No, I don't mean it's two components to receiving the vaccine, but this is, since the human body's never seen it before, they don't want it to get found before it delivers its package, and so that's going to be a complicated issue for AstraZeneca, because if for some reason it fails, then they've got a whole bunch of research to get back to the drawing board on, because they have to find another virus to play with. However, the others are just using messenger RNA, so mRNA, and it's only identifying the spike proteins on the coronavirus, and it looks like that might be the way to go. And well, we'll just have to see, because like I know Meki's mentioned this before, and I'm the kind of guy also that has had my flu shots every year, because I can't quite afford to lose time at work and not turn up. So because of sickness, and as I was usually understaffed as it was, and I felt compelled to do that, and I did. So I've never experienced a bad effect or side effect or anything, and I've always held a lot of trust and faith in our CSIRO, that's our science division, government paid. But in recent times, I think I've probably developed a healthy skepticism towards everything. I'm still up to date with my shots, though. But when I look into the studies that are done to do with these specific vaccinations, and that they've not had any long-term testing, and the testing, two candidates had negative impacts from it, which they declined to adhere to the any root cause from the vaccine. They said, it's not related at all. To be honest, would I? Well, I wouldn't be first, and I wouldn't have that AstraZeneca one. I would probably choose one of the others if I had a choice. And I would stand behind, I would stand next to the politician and pull their arm in to replace mine, and see what they did if they were to receive the vaccine before me, not in just a saline mix to pretend like they had it. Like if they were all smiling for the cameras, they'd probably be saline. Who knows? So that's where I stand. That's my personal opinion, and you can differ. And don't send me hate mail. I'm still advocating for the vaccine, but this is where it gets weird. If the case fatality rate is currently 3.53%, and that's highlighted just here, and if you can see the graph, it's a bit small, I'm sorry about that. And here's a graph of the case fatality rate. So initially we got up to like 68% or thereabouts, 68%, when we didn't know what to do, what we were faced with, and how to treat it. And then as we got better at it, it dropped down to about 6.2, and then we saw another wave. This was the true second wave, and our hospitals were overrun and people were dying anyway. And as a result of not being treated and all the other complications, and it's now down to 3.5%. So just saying, recognize it for what it is. Don't hate you if you don't agree with me. It's just a tough place that we're all faced with now, I think. We're seeing Qantas is talking about not allowing people on board their aircraft unless you've had the vaccine. But here's the rub. The vaccine, any of them, for instance, there's no peer-reviewed papers yet, and they haven't confirmed whether or not you are they haven't confirmed by testing that they're not still contagious. What they've said is that you are still contagious, having had the vaccines, any of them, but because your body was able to find it and stop it, then you don't get any negative impact from it. You don't have any negative effects. So that's a case of you end up living with the virus, but it's still contagious. So if we've all had the vaccine, then fine. It ends up sort of like that smallpox thing where, we could introduce smallpox somewhere, or any other of the viruses that we've come to live with, to a population who has never experienced them. It's sort of like, you've had that chicken pox, you can't have it again kind of experience. Now, I'm trying to raise the awareness that if Qantas say that you can only have you've got to have the vaccine to come on board, that means you're just not going to die. It means the whole plane's still going to be filled with virus. Even though everyone's had the vaccine on it, it would still spread, and you've all got it, but then it's asymptomatic, so you shrug it off, right? And you can go back to life as usual, business as usual. What does that mean for any country who hasn't had the vaccine yet? So, and how long is this thing going to last? Because I don't think we've seen half of the beginning of it yet. If we've currently got 62 million confirmed cases on the planet, and I look at this curve is crazy, right? We're doing, 671,000 people per day, new cases coming along. At some point, once again, the case fatality rate, say 10% of those used to be treated in hospital, and then 5%, half of those, that would be 5% in total, of those infected would end up needing some kind of medical care in a bed, and then there was a percentage of those that wouldn't make it. And now there's so many people now encountering the virus, and the profile of those infected are certainly different from the beginning, when we only had 100,000 a day. Now it's 6 times that, and it's that virus is spreading like wildfire, right, everywhere. And what does it mean for your town and where you live? And do you think, and this is what I think, I'm quite sure that when whoever's president, in February, that there's going to have to be something done. So if the vaccine is all that's done, possibly in the case of Trump, great. Life goes on. Businesses open up, travel opens up. Well, you can start going on cruises again because everyone's going to be vaccinated to get on board. You'll have a vaccination passport, which will, like your papers will allow you travel. So I believe that while they're not going to make it mandatory, they'll make it, it's disincentives to not have it. So if you choose not to have it, you will be restricted in what you can and can't do, or where you can and can't go, and what you can and can't receive from the government, for instance. And maybe what you can and can't receive as far as medical care is concerned. Public transport, you may not be able to get on board public transport, for instance. Thinking about what that might mean, I think this is a crazy time. The only way to police that much interaction with checkpoints would be to have military assist the law enforcement to be able to set up checkpoints. And it sounds quite fascist, doesn't it? You have checkpoints and you need your papers. Do you have your papers? Yes, I do have my papers. Can I see your papers? Yes, you may. And then they're armed. No, I'm not going to say no to that. And then you show them and they say, well, on your way. Imagine the person behind you getting reefed out of their car. Maybe to be given the vaccine manually, forcefully. I don't know, maybe against their will. I don't know, because that's quite. I've got an example of what fascism looks like, right? But coming up, but it worries me that from last year, this is like 9/11. Before 9/11, you watch the news stories, and the news stories, even days before 9/11. Bryant Gumbel smiles and everyone's smiling and everyone's happy and all the stories are positive, and they have a celebrity chef come in and cook something for breakfast and everyone's happy. Days after, and thence onwards to now, I love the word thence, then to now, there isn't any of that anymore. It's almost a perpetual fear. This perpetual war on, what was it again? Terrorism? What? I haven't seen any of that for years. In fact, it barely even sideswiped us here in Australia, and yet we got all the same laws you did. They all got passed, like the Patriot Act. We got the Digital Surveillance Act here. All of our data, every single last bit of data that traverses the whole internet from within Australia anywhere is kept for 5 years minimum, and then it's transferred to the government here in Australia. Goodness knows if you can dig up anything and discover what it is where you are. But yeah, I have to say, there's a person in the chat room called Somebody, because you can name yourself anything, you can anonymize yourself, and they say, okay, let's go back to Nazi Germany. I mean, that's the likeness here that I'm talking about. Yes, and then they came for me. Yeah, so there's that famous World War II poem where, first they came for the lawyers, and I said nothing because I wasn't a lawyer. Then they came for what were they? The unionists, but I didn't say anything because I wasn't a unionist. And then they came, for an ethnic minority, and I wasn't one of them, so it didn't matter. And then they came for the Jews, and there was no one to hear me. Right. So you have to think about what fascism looks like. Compare that model to what's going on and draw your own conclusions. Thinking about how leftist, how left-leaning all the social media platforms are, I was astounded when I watched that Senate interview with the fellow from Twitter and what's his name from Facebook, Zuckerberg. The one from Twitter, I can't remember his name. I never remember his name. Their grilling over, oh yeah, but yes, we silenced the President of the United States, but he was saying some things, and we had our fact checkers, our bots turned him off, and our fact checkers just, said something about it. And they said, he's still banned. Well, all he has to do is send him an email. All he has to do is log on and hit accept or something, right? And unblock himself. So I don't know whether he's done that. They know whether he's done it. You know what I mean? If they know the specifics around the case and there's something you'd brief, if you've got a Senate inquiry, you go in armed with everything. He didn't say, let me take that on notice. He knew what he was doing and what he was talking about, and how his actions swayed the elections, or attempted to sway elections. And goodness knows that's on shaky ground. So, I've got the shadowy world of the thing. Hang on a minute. I didn't have a page up for that. So, I don't know where. My thoughts that the US will lock down. That's it. I'm going to move on to the US election. So, there's a lot of talk coming from the alternate media about Trump's battle against the system to prove the system let you all down. That's what is happening here. And it seems like all of those bought judges and officials in three-letter agencies may be whitewashing over the questionable and possibly improper and fraudulent behaviour witnessed this election. I didn't witness it, but there's affidavits of witnesses, and that's how I've worded my phrasing here. Very important. I wrote this today. I need to say that I'm in the middle as a commentator, and I'm not fighting for either side. It isn't even my country. Personally, I hope the truth wins. I don't care who wins, but as long as the truth is there, that wins. And I know it's a stupid dream of mine, because, and I should live in a dream world where lawyers are concerned, because I know what they do, because they are after wins and not the truth. They don't care. They walk out of a case whether a guy was guilty or not, but they won, and they don't even care. They're like, woo, I won. It doesn't matter, right? I fought hard and I won. That's all they worry about. And it isn't something that they're after going, yeah, well, I really suspected the guy was guilty, but I got him off. Yeah, well, I fought against the evidence. Yeah, whatever, right? You may as well have a computer doing your arguing for you, like some, Deep Blue or some Google thing, right? Some quantum computer arguing on your behalf, instead of a lawyer, because it doesn't really even care anyway whether it wins or loses or anything. It's just going to fight for an outcome. Isn't it crazy? Anyway, there might be some actual legal basis for Trump's arguments, so keep your ear to the ground for an outcome. That's what I say. I have to commentate like I'm watching a sporting match and people running up and down the field. I don't side with any particular team going, oh, geez, I hope they win. Oh, I really hope they win, because that's my team playing today. No, because that sways every call that the ref makes. Oh, you bastard, shouldn't have called that. Yeah, and the other commentator who's trying to stay balanced goes, but you only argued when the call was against your team. You didn't argue when it was for the other team. And that's what we're seeing the media doing right now. So the mainstream media are all left-facing. They've all sort of polarized themselves and are attempting to be quiet about Trump's efforts in court. Let's put it that way. So this battle may be fought in the High Court and not in the ballot boxes, this election. Yeah. So I stumbled upon footage of a left activist at the last election who had suggested this same tactic that's going to be announced. If you're into the alt media, you might already know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. But they mentioned this tactic at the last election when the DNC lost. So I wonder if those same people comment this time around if their same idea gets up and they counter it in an attempt to quash it, because they were the ones calling for it the last time when they were losing. Now that they're winning, then they're saying, wow, oh, hey, whoa, hey, no, I didn't say that. And you go, here's some footage of you saying it. What do you think now? Oh, but that was then. No, you can't have it. You can't have it all the ways you want it to be, just because it's going to suit your current requirements. You either have it or you don't. And I think the whole of America completely deserves to have a fair, accurate, and truthful election. And all parties should be dissolved of money. They should be given an allowance only for advertising, and there shouldn't be any third-party advertising for to either support or go against you. There shouldn't be any of that. It should be all heavily regulated, and that regulation should be about policy only. That's a big call. You'll never see it in any of our lifetimes, right? We'll end up being in a fascist dictatorship before that happens. But that's the way a true and fair election should go down. There should be no mud raking. There should be no name calling. There shouldn't be anything negative. It shouldn't be all about what the other person isn't doing. It should be just policy-driven randomness that is an A, B kind of choice. When they say, do you believe this? And you say, yes. And do you think this is the thing? And you say, well, no, actually, no, it's not a thing. And when you've finished answering the questions, it should do the vote for you, because they're the outcomes of the policies that the political parties are driving, completely anonymous. And yes, I know it's just as fraught with problems as your current system, but if it weren't, then that would be the best way of doing it, because then you don't like the person and have an emotional connection to the people who are in. It's just policies, because that's what, after the elections are finished, policies is all that's left, and it should be policy based. It shouldn't be popularity game. Anyway, there was a Trump tweet just a while ago, and it said specific allegations were made, and we have massive proof. In the Pennsylvania case, some people just don't want to see it. They want nothing to do with saving our country. Sad. Double exclamation point. And that was a Trump tweet. And in that Trump tweet was this thing that was added to it by the social media platform that said Biden is, the president-elect, and the what's it called? The college votes will determine the outcome, right? And that's what I think he was playing on. So I think Trump's got some legal case going on where he may see something to do with those collegial votes, right? Anyway, I want to move on. So hang on, the government can stay in your house and feed and comfort you. Yeah, that's really funny, somebody. So I'm not, that's, you've heard my arguments, and that's all I need to say. So Meki, you need to learn to speak Chinese. I think Meki can already, and Meki isn't on the call. Somebody, I'm Dave, and it's Dave and Meki's shiny side out. So the Iran scientist, if you haven't heard, was executed. I mean, I would actually, side note, something really funny. And I was saying, when they have all these prisoner exchanges you see in the media, the prisoner exchanges are basically spy swapping. We caught your spies. Do you want one of them back? And it's going to cost you 2 of yours. And they go, yeah, okay. When and where and who is it? And then they start negotiating value of prize. And then they end up doing these prisoner swaps, and it's, they're usually assets getting swapped around. Just saying. I was trying to tell someone that the other day, and they go, what? Oh, no, these are just regular people. I said, your government doesn't give a toss about regular people. They want their assets back. And this stuff really does happen. There are really assassins. There are really paid kills, and it's a global thing, and it's government driven. And yeah, good luck. Good luck. there's also, I would suspect there would be other large organizations that are doing a similar thing in a different way, possibly. And I really struggle to and hope that that isn't the case. But look, the an Iranian scientist has been executed. Mohsen that's F-A-K, Khrizadeh is the fellow's name, who was part of the nuclear weapons program. Now, as we all know, there's been a talk in the media. I can't say it's real. The talk in the media is all I can suggest. Is that Iran won't quit with their nuclear, advancement of nuclear weapons, and if they do, they'll join 8 or 9 other countries with nuclear weapons, and they just want a seat at the table. That's all they want, is the seat at the table, because all the big people that have nuclear weapons have a seat at the table. This is the big boys' table. Very few people use them, but they're there, and you get some more clout, I suppose. That's the best way of putting it. Now, a strange meeting took place after that with Pompeo, and also a carrier has arrived in the Strait of Hormuz. So I asked the question here: is there something that is going to start as a result? That's what I'm asking. I'd like to ask the question, and you can think about it all you like. You can message Mecca and I. We have a website, shinysideout.com.au or shinysideout.net, same thing. And we've got you can contact us through there. You can just comment in the bottom of the YouTube channel video that you're watching. Please do, and like and subscribe too, by the way. And I'm going to push the button so that happens. I normally do it when Meki's talking, because I've only got one brain. It's tough. All right. Look, I wonder what that means. I always thought that there was going to be a war with the US and China. It doesn't appear to be the case. I think that sort of went by the wayside. Maybe then it's going to be Israel and Iran, because they're at each other. Don't know. It's apparently, so there's some words coming around in the mainstream media that the Israeli military were involved in that, but it's only hearsay. I don't know, and you just have to keep our ears to the ground to see what's going on with that one. Where was I? Yeah, the China tariffs. This is quite odd. So it comes off the back of some of the bad relations we've been having with China. Okay, so China is an emerging market, and they've always played the underdog, and now Xi Jinping has turned up the wick. I'm using a lot of really old school terms today. Turn up the wick on what does it mean to be an emerging world power. Well, we are at the new world power. So just do what I say. So what he's done is, because Australia put that request in for an investigation into what the world would call the Wuhan virus, but and 35 other countries agreed that maybe, I think we should just look into the origin of the virus. That'd be great. And then floods basically buried, wiped away, washed clean the streets of Wuhan, and there's nothing left to look at. So we'll never actually get that. But because of those words, they started doing stuff like banning, coal and lobsters, wine, wheat, barley. I can't remember all the stuff that they started saying. Well, actually, we're not going to import. We're going to buy that from you anymore because reasons. So they've just slapped a 212% tariff on Australian wine, and we were, they love our wine. Well, they used to. Now no one's going to be able to afford it. Coal has been stopped entirely. They said they were claiming it was not up to their quality standards. Of course, we have the best coal in in the world. It's the cleanest coal. It's first rate. So don't know what they're talking about. I think they were just they were using all their wiggle words to get out of these agreements. The lobsters rotted on the docks, so the people were paid, but they just didn't eat them. They said no. Right. So we ship them there, and then they're supposed to, take them off the ships, and then they own them. But they were still our ownership, and we hadn't been, remunerated for that. So I've reported that China has changed its behaviour as the virus left them to us. As the world said no to their Huawei technology, it's across the Five Eyes, as we said we wanted to investigate the virus origin, they have started to play bad cop and are refusing to trade. My personal thoughts are that they have turned into a mob boss. Hey, I'm not doing that. Tell him Johnny's gonna get a kneecap. I don't know. I can't do accents very well. I can do voices, but not that. So mob boss, when they used to be a friendly trading partner. Think about when they were just friendly. We thought they wanted to be a peer. Nope. Not a skerrick of that attitude actually existed. It was in our heads. They're playing the game. It's like playing Monopoly against someone who's worked out the way to win. And their goal was to win. Only goal was to win. And if you buy up all the properties, you win. Because no one can afford the rent. So this bullying that they're doing right now will not stand in the international community. We will find other markets. There are other places to sell our wares to each other. We can do that. And do we really want to do business with a country with such poor human rights policies? And just locking up Uyghurs. Why? Because they have a religion? You can't have a religion in China. You can't have free thought. You can't write one bad word about China without repercussions. Either jailed, never to be seen again, labour camps. And that's their policy. And I keep questioning this with my friends. And the simple question is, would America want to lose the top spot to that? That's a question. I don't know. You think about it and message me and maybe make some comments, and I'd love to have a good discussion about it with you. So in that same rhetoric, China said that the Five Eyes will lose their eyes. That's what they said. The Five Eyes, China warns the Five Eyes will be plucked out over the Hong Kong criticism. So we criticised the way that they reneged. China signed a deal and they reneged out of the deal. They said that they are not going to honour that deal any longer. We're going to take it over, and freedom of speech and all that. That's gone. Forget it. It was always part of China, so we're just going to take it back. But you signed the deal. It's the only reason we gave it back to you. Not we, and I'm not the person who owned it. It was the only reason why it was given back, because they signed. But if they think this is the way the world works, I think that's going to be really hard. So making demands to Australia about reinstating Huawei and others as well. And they said, it's all gone dark because you've pulled all the Huawei stuff out, because they were, that's the way they could get telemetry from us. So I asked the question, do you think that the world should turn their back to China as a trading partner, as a world power? Because right now they're misbehaving so bad and have such an egotistical view of themselves as the world power now, and are forcing trade and hands, and they're being basically mob bots or bullies. And this was echoed by our Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Francis Adamson also. They said that they both acknowledge the balance of power is shifting, and the Prime Minister stresses Australia's unique interests as a sovereign state is what the story says. It says Adamson says China as a global power cannot escape scrutiny or debate, and warns the Communist Party that it's not at the point where it can say, or it can set the terms of engagement with the world. Exactly what I just said. So we don't trust their game at the moment. They're being bullies. I think we should all turn our backs to them until they suck it up and get real with the rest of us, because it's the one planet we've got. And this is why I think every one of these words are fighting words. They're all leading to the same thing. And I've got 3 minutes left, and I think I'll make this one. All right, so this story, it's like a highway to fascism. French citizens are protesting the new bill which makes it illegal to film police or other personnel doing their duty, performing their duty, which flies in the face of allegations of police brutality, which has been occurring. And okay, so this position of not attending to the police brutality, but then just because the only reason people knew that it was going on was because you were filming the police doing it, instead of treating the police and educating them and stopping them from doing that. No, let's not do that at all. What we're going to do instead is ban people and make it illegal to film them doing their police brutality. So if you can't film it, how can you prove it? Their words against yours in a court of law, they win. It's as simple as that. No body cameras, nothing. Police beating people, and it's going to be okay. So I knew that the history of France has seen a number of socialist governments. That's fine. But I never knew, because they don't currently have a socialist government, but I never knew it would be such a short road to fascism, where the police are above the law, that the government would allow something to be put in place to orchestrate that the police could beat you with impunity. I mean, what happened? This is like I woke up and I'm in George Orwell's book. That's what it's like. It's like I'm in the prequel to George Orwell's book, where he wrote it from being within that system, and we're racing down the road. I'm a car guy. We're driving in our supercharged cars down this road, and it's the only destination. Fascism. Here we go. Is this the Great Reset? Is this what we're looking at? Is this what we're going to see all over the world? And what if China was the head country and the US lost to them because maybe the US was too inward facing to see what was truly going on the world stage right now? We have another country there, and they're upstaging, but they're criminals, and they don't behave nice, and they're not being the buddies that we would imagine that they should have been from our perspective. They think they're doing the right thing. That's the government, not the Chinese people. The Chinese people are fine. Chinese people they're just people like you and me. They have very similar personal opinions, but I lived in California, and I found that the impression that I'd had before I lived in amongst you and went to school with you was quite a different. It's not like everyone. Oh, what was the comedian that played golf in Caddyshack, and very loud guys everywhere. The impression at the time, back when Caddyshack came out, and back in the 80s, was that traveling Americans were bigger than themselves, bigger than life. There's the music. However, I found that not to be true, that everyone is just, people are people, and it doesn't matter what continent you live on. All right? So I love everybody now. It's all good. Hey, take the time to donate. I'm going to drop this channel and then re-establish a brand new one. I'll catch you after the short break. Use the time to donate. Maybe get yourself a gift for Christmas coming up on the station's website, and I'll catch you afterwards.
Revolution Radio.